What is happening, everybody? This is Jamie Busick, founder, CEO, CTO of Virtual Sprout. And today we're going to talk about multi-factor authentication inside of credit unions, what you need to know. So first and foremost, what is multi-factor authentication for all of the non-tech folks out there? Multi-factor authentication is a security control that combines something you know, right, a password, with something you have, which is a security token, your smartphone, a biometric. And actually, the biometric part might be something you are, right? So you have multiples of these factors combined to give you access. And this is a requirement. This is a requirement largely across the board. So one of the things that prompted this discussion this week has been our discussion with multiple credit unions and if they have multi-factor authentication, and we get various answers. Most everybody says they do. And then when we kind of peel the onion back and ask, okay, where is that? How's it implemented? What multi-factor do you have? Some folks mean they have multi-factor on Microsoft 365. Some people mean that they have multi-factor on their core processor. Most folks are not compliant with the regulations as they are written by the FTC, the NCUA, their cyber insurance guidelines and STIPs. So we wanted to kind of cover this today to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So first and foremost, who in your realm requires MFA? So some of the people that we know about obviously are the NCUA. They're very forthcoming with the fact that you got to have MFA on. You will get have a finding if you do not have it, at least for privileged accounts, but across the board is preferred, if not required, depending on asset size. The Graham-Leach-Billy Act, the GLBA, I'm sure Bliley, sorry, not Billy, Bliley Act, GLBA, and the FTC safeguards, right? So the FTC has a set of frameworks that deal with financial institutions. So it's not just credit unions, it could be even car dealerships or other people that are transacting and facilitating loans. Those folks are also financial institutions. There is a requirement around MFA there as well. The Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council comes out and talks about having MFA safeguarding online banking systems. PCI, if you're processing credit cards, which most of you are, there is a requirement for MFA in PCI 4.0. So all these folks, and of course, cybersecurity, that's one of the very first questions. Do you have multi-factor authentication on privileged accounts? Do you have it on your SaaS and your externally facing accounts? So yes, it's a requirement, but it does come with a whole host of benefits. First and foremost, it enhances security right out of the gate. If you have passwords are easily broken. You can run brute force attacks. There was actually a demonstration by the Chinese government using quantum computing where they were able to break pretty much any password of any length in very little amounts of time. They used some of that attack against U.S. infrastructure to kind of demonstrate it against government, right? So kind of crazy. Passwords are getting less and less effective. So multi-factor is definitely important. You needed to maintain compliance. It helps with member trust. So if you implement this on your online banking, people assume that you are more secure. I can tell you from personal experience, I like banking with small regional banks, community banks, credit unions. I have left personally 2 or 3 relationships over the fact that they don't have enough security around their online portals. It freaks me out that somebody could get in with my password and or some other person's password and then get in the system and do a bunch of things, then I'm out all that money, right? So I don't even want to deal with an FDIC claim. This is absolutely something on people's mind. It reduces fraud, and it does absolutely demonstrate a standard of care, which, if you've heard some of our other talks, is something you want to be able to do if ever you need to go get your cyber insurance to pay, or if you're in a lawsuit regarding a breach, that you can demonstrate that you maintain a standard of care above or beyond normal business standards, right? And the standard for a credit union is obviously higher than most other businesses. So how do you kind of get this done and figure out what you need to do? So most of you, and this is the season of audits, you're in some kind of audit period right now. Um, if you don't have this, or if the auditor goes through and finds it, you'll get a finding, and you'll know that there's something there to be done. For everybody else, or even if you have done your audits, it's always good to start with a cybersecurity risk assessment that gives you a baseline, lets you know, okay, this system isn't protected with MFA, these systems are. And this is probably a good segue time, because this comes up during a cybersecurity risk assessment. Not all MFA is the same. So MFA that sends you a code, um, is kind of the base, right? So we have some people that have set this up where it actually calls them. And in one instance, we actually saw a teller where she had it set to call her desk phone. So if you were at her terminal and you're punching her password that you've potentially stolen, her phone will ring and give you the code that you need to get past the secondary challenge, right? That's not good MFA. Um, Going further, if you're, say, using Microsoft Authenticator and it pops up and it challenges you for some numbers and you have some numbers on the screen, that's yet more difficult for someone to break through. Going all the way up to things like a YubiKey or some kind of physical token that you install into the computer, that is something that you have on your person that you can put in. Same thing with the biometric, fingerprint, facial recognition, iris scan. Some of that stuff gets kind of onerous and users don't like to use it. So biometric, fingerprint generally is the way to go, but you can kind of get more sophisticated the more things you have to protect, or the higher the security requirement, right? So all this stuff comes out inside of a cybersecurity risk assessment, but you need to definitely implement multi-factor in a way that is sufficient enough to protect the assets that you have. Another topic that comes up a lot, and we'll probably cover this more in a different live stream, is session hijacking and session token hijacking that occurs with multi-factor. So sometimes, again, this goes to the cybersecurity risk assessment. People implement multi-factor. A great example is Microsoft 365, and they implement it for convenience rather than security. The convenience part being, I don't want to be challenged outside of every 15 days or every 30 days or every 90 days. To do that, there's a token that gets downloaded to the local machine that tells the system and tells the service, hey, I've already authenticated. Here's my token. That's my secondary piece of information outside of my password. That's all great if you never have an issue with your physical device. However, there are absolutely websites out there that are running malicious code that will scrape up those tokens right out of your cache, and then those go over to the bad guys. They use them in concert with stolen credentials, and they get access to systems. We have one particular customer that we came to us, asked us to start tightening. They were going through 12 to 20 session hijacking attempts a month. They were about a 400-person shop, not a credit union, but they really were struggling, and so we had to tighten it down. Things like conditional access, but MFA on every single attempt, or MFA tied to geographic boundaries. So if I'm in the office, I treat MFA different than if I'm at home, right? And everybody has kids. If there is a policy, which credit unions really should not have, but if there's a policy that allows the employees to access corporate systems with personal devices, this type of stuff happens more readily because kids get on the computers, go out, play online games. Those game sites have malicious codes, scrape up those tokens, cause a whole bunch of problems, right? So all this ties into, of course, training the employees, educating the employees about the importance of multi-factor. And ironically, it's the workers that are the most compliant. The executive team is the most non-compliant when it comes to multi-factor and throws the biggest fits, but they're the ones that have the highest risk to the organization if they were to be breached. If there's a business email compromise, their emails are going to do more damage than, say, Joe working at the teller line, right? So Everybody needs to be trained. Everybody needs to be made aware of the importance of it. And then ultimately, you got to monitor this stuff. You put it in, you got to keep an eye on it, make sure that it remains secure, continue to evaluate the threats. The bad guys want to get through. These threat actors are actively looking at ways to defeat multi-factor. And so there's constantly a tune-up. So it isn't just a set it and forget it type thing. Put this in, keep an eye on it, monitor it, make sure that you stay safe. So in conclusion, since this is just a live stream, we're not going to dive so deep into these topics. Many of you, again, are in that audit period. You're getting your findings back. You're finding out what you need to close gap wise. This is a fantastic time to book a cyber strategy session with one of our security engineers to kind of go over those gaps, those findings. We could talk about multi-factor or any of the other security concerns that you might have. Cyber-strategy.virtualsprout.com is a great place to get booked with one of our security engineers. Cyber-strategy.virtualsprout.com. Go ahead and book today. Quick 20-minute phone call. We'll hear what you're dealing with. You'll find a little bit about us, and then we can take next steps if it's appropriate. Anyways, have a great day. Stay safe out there.